PLEA is a nonprofit organization that's located in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. It originated the better part of 40 years ago when a group of preschool parents were looking for services that really did not exist at that time for their autistic preschoolers. And the agency has really grown over the years since then, such that we now have a range of services for special needs children, teenagers, and even adults.
We work with the providers that send students to our school, the providers that send families to our agency, and lots of other individuals. We work with funders in the community, other service providers, legislators, and different groups that impact human services in general. And I think that those different levels of groups that we work with have helped us to see how we can use these prosocial enhancements, working with individual groups and then with groups of groups in our field.
We started initially with ACT for our staff, doing staff training, really looking at what can we do to promote their psychological flexibility. And as we gained facility with the model, we began using it with our children as well as with their families. And from there, we started using an ACT technique of the matrix that subsequently was incorporated into Prosocial. But we actually started using the matrix with our classroom teams. We started using it in organizational meetings to really frame what we were doing and to keep track of how we were managing ourselves as we interacted with each other.
Our kids can be very demanding. The interventions we have in place for them can be very demanding and require a lot of fidelity for success. And so we looked at ACT as something that could help our staff manage distress and anxiety through fairly difficult situations because what we're doing really matters.
For PLEA, Prosocial has been a process of seeing how our many years of acceptance and commitment training has impacted our staff and those whom we work with. And we recently surveyed our staff to see how their lives, both professionally and personally, have been impacted by ACT. And we received some astounding results. And so that has really helped us see that the training that our staff has received throughout the years has taken us to a higher level and really impacted the culture that we see on a day-to-day basis here at PLEA.
What we found that Prosocial and the core design principles has really added is almost a form of organizational diagnosis. So when issues arise, we can actually go through a particular problem set as it's occurring and start to think about where do the issues lie? Are we all on the same page with what we're trying to accomplish? Are we doing a good enough job supporting individuals functioning autonomously? Do we need to work more effectively together as a team? Are we collaborating? Are we dealing with conflict effectively? So the core design principles really have allowed us to look more specifically at the issues that have gone on.
Moving to Prosocial fit pretty naturally with the way ACT was evolving. It started, like I said, as a very individualized thing for our staff. And then kind of the natural way to build from that is to figure out how we can bring more people in. And so that's why I moved from staff to classrooms to families, and then started to reflect back on, can this be applied organizationally? And so using the ACT matrix as kind of our entree into ACT for a group, we started to play around with that.
Much more recently, we've been using the matrix with some issues that our board is facing. And we can see already that continuing that line of thinking with our board and using the matrix to work through our PLEA mission, because we do have the shared purpose, will help us specifically do things like work towards an even greater vision or a noble cause for our agency, just using the matrix to work through some of the things that are important to PLEA and our future.
We also see it showing up for us, the impact of Prosocial showing up for us in terms of the way our classroom teams collaborate with each other when they have to schedule school-wide events. it turns out that all of that is happening remarkably free of some of the tensions that used to be manifest. So it certainly seems like operating with Prosocial is making a nice difference for us.
In the same way that ACT can provide a tool for diagnosing behavior in a moment or the function of behavior in a context, the core design principles really afforded us an opportunity to do that with our group functioning. So we've done a lot of work simply using the core design principles as framing conversation starters for an ACT matrix.
So it's just helped us in a more objective way look to some strategic planning to help PLEA grow and move into the future.
For example, we've identified that we have classrooms that function as groups that need to coordinate both within a classroom and out of a classroom. We have a number of different school districts that we interact with that form their own groups. And then just within our school, we have specialists who are going to be providing speech language therapy, occupational therapy, gym, working with the family. So all of these people function as groups in kind of our larger ecosystem.
And with the addition of the core design principles, we've really been able to do that more effectively and more efficiently. And it's been very helpful. It feels like we've been using a camera with a zoom lens where we can zoom all the way in on the individual students that we're serving, but then we can zoom out across levels all the way out more recently to the level of the entire organization and the board, using the same set of principles across each level, which I think has really contributed significantly to our ability to function in a more coherent and orchestrated fashion.
So our work with our board of directors has really helped us to look at the design principles, in particular with where we want to be in our future and looking a few years out, looking to see what's held us back and some of the things that we haven't addressed head on, but looking at them more objectively to see where we can take our agency into the future using some of the information that has held us back, things like procrastination and not reaching out to those who we think could help us get to where we need to be.
One of the things that we're as an agency trying to do is take this conversation to a broader level where we're not just talking about what is PLEA in this for, but other similarly oriented agencies. Where is the overlap? Where is the symmetry in mission and purpose and values? And can we put that in a prosocial context? So now we're not just looking at our agency, we're looking at how we interact with other agencies. And how those agencies interact with managed care companies that set reimbursement rates and with legislators that set the regulations under which all of those agencies operate.
So using Prosocial in the way of looking at how we're going to work with additional partners to get to those goals that we have for our future, and then specifically to look at some of the things that have held us back and to use the matrix to look at some of those things that we haven't talked about as objectively before, but some areas that maybe weren't as comfortable for PLEA and our board to talk about, but now have come to a place where it does feel more comfortable to talk about some of the negative things and to help change the culture in terms of our board, like we've changed the culture with our day-to-day staff.
Stepping back and putting ACT in the larger prosocial context, it really provides for me as a supervisor, for us as an admin team, a way to look at and say, these are the areas that we want our group to be successful in. These are the areas that we can reasonably predict are going to have an impact. Where are we seeing a need to step in? Where are we seeing things that are going really well?
I think it really has served to increase our viability as an organization and to function more coherently as a whole.
I've given the chance to really talk about what ACT has meant to our agency and to our school, and then what the evolution from ACT to Prosocial has meant. I would say that it's made a foundational difference?
We would like our community partners who we work with to see how Prosocial and how ACT has helped us move in a more successful way in our programming with our staff, with our families, and with the children that we serve here.